All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people, just like you right there, and just like me. Well, the Judas Priest drama continues to unfold as more and more stuff gets printed about KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, and some of the stuff that continues to kind of unwind itself from a point of just talking back and forth at each other through articles, which is very interesting. And I think these guys ought to get together and just settle this. Maybe there can be some kind of a reunion. You know, if the band gets into the Hall of Fame, that KK Downing will be there. And I'm sure he'll be probably the happiest guy. See, here's the narrative. There are a couple of narratives. If you're a Judas Priest fan, by the way, you're probably thinking, why can't these guys just get along, right? So KK leaves, then maybe he had some regrets about leaving the band, and then he presents his story. He was a little frustrated, apparently, by just the way the band was doing things. And the other guys had no idea that he was frustrated. And then this note comes along. And now Glenn Tipton, who is reflecting on KK's decision to leave Priest more than a decade ago, says, we spoke about what was probably going to be our farewell tour. And then Ken quit. That's KK, by the way. Nothing could have been worse, because after you play for all those years, you plan your farewell tour to sign off in a good way. All of a sudden, Ken quit, and we didn't know what to do. It was a nightmare. It was only when we found Richie Faulkner, that we realized we could go on and play the tour, and then more. Is Richie Faulkner, is he coming back? What's his status right now? That was one of the weirdest things, a 41-year-old guy having a major heart problem while he's on stage, and he was just minutes away from a hospital, which literally saved his life. But holy crap, Batman, nothing here to see, nothing weird going on with Richie Faulkner. Haven't seen too many articles about Richie lately. Anyway, Tipton went on to say that he found some of Downing's accusations surprising, like he just couldn't believe what KK was saying. Now, from the RMO standpoint here, it appears that these guys are just hucksters for publicity, and good on them, because this is the way to generate more interest. The band might be headed for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally, right? Even though Blue Oyster Cult isn't in there, even though a whole Steppenwolf isn't in there, but we're going to put Judas Priest in there. Okay, great. Congrats. You guys influenced everybody. Nobody influenced you. Look, as far as my take on Priest, give me the 70s Judas Priest, and then maybe into the early 80s, and then everything after that got very cartoon-y, okay? And there was a lot of style and image, and the music was okay, but it got louder and it got less melodic, harder to listen to. And see, there's no air in most of the music that came later on. There are some exceptions to the rule, but quite honestly, I put like Judas Priest in with Rainbow and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath from the 70s in that era. I mean, even old school Ronnie James Dio and his band Elf. Go listen to that. And then even though everybody loves the Dio solo material, I would rather listen to Elf any day of the week, because I can hear stuff. I can hear all the instruments, and it's blues based. All these guys were kind of trying to amp up blues music and rock it out as hard as they could, inspired by bands like Blue Cheer and Black Sabbath and others. There were many, but Judas Priest to me kind of became sort of more image based, as did a lot of heavy metal bands later on in the 80s when they knew, they could sell a lot of albums by, doing the devil horns and, having really great logos and t-shirts and just defiant lyrics. Even if you couldn't understand them, you could always read the sleeve on the record or the cassette insert or the CD insert later on. Anyway, Downing's claim that he was hurt when he wasn't asked to rejoin the band. Glenn Tipton says he never approached any of the band and asked to rejoin. So for all we knew, the way, here's something here, okay? And I know this firsthand because I've been dealing with a few rock stars recently. They have people, okay? And you communicate through their people, who then communicate through other people. Typically, you don't pick up the phone anymore unless you've got a really close relationship with somebody and you feel, this ability to be transparent with that person. Then you pick up the phone. No, you have a manager or a publicist or whoever it is, whoever that go-between person is, media, contact. When I try to get an interview somewhere, sometimes I'll have to go through a contact and then they'll pass the information along to somebody else. So it becomes very formal and very scripted and choreographed. And by the time that information gets to where it needs to go, I bet you that person isn't getting, the full story or exactly what the contacting party was actually trying to say. It's really kind of sad, but this is a big business now. So if Downing was to reach out to Priest, it would be probably through their management or through some go-between type person. Anyway, I talk about getting Richie. Remember Richie? Yeah, they got Richie in the band. And if you really want to come back, you better come back now. That's prior to Richie Faulkner joining Judas Priest. By the way, how's he doing these days? Haven't heard much about that. I mean, that was a big deal to have that issue happen on stage, that mysterious issue that was caused by what? We still don't know, but I have a hunch as to what it was. 41 years old, healthy dude. He's playing on stage and then all of a sudden, like, his heart explodes. Yeah. Okay, that's normal. Anyway, the 70-year-old Downing, who wrote about his departure from Priest in his 2018 autobiography, Heavy Duty, Days and Nights in Judas Priest, said last year he was unhappy with the band's live performances toward the end because Glenn used to have too many beers before and during the concerts at the time. And I don't know what was going on. We had words about it, but musically, we weren't as footsure as I felt I wanted to be. I wasn't really happy with that. It was rock and roll. It's one of those things. It's rock and roll. And yeah, that's all it is. It's only rock and roll, but I like it. Or you're a band that really wants to lock it in tight. And that's what I used to get off on musically, was being really solid and locked in with those kick drums. You're either Keith Richards and he's got a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other, but you're still playing the guitar, or you're really digging deep. Not sure what that actually means, but he's basically making the claim that the band wasn't focused and they were drinking too much beer. They're Judas Priest. It's this isn't Michael Bublé, going out on tour here. This is Judas Priest. So, look, I think you should be focused and doing a good job. And, if your drinking is interfering, but that's a narrative. Again, that's a convenient narrative. I'm sure everybody was consuming adult beverages and not really worrying about why they were doing it. It actually contributes to the image of the band. And This is an argument, by the way, that just continues to go back and forth. There are articles almost every week, or it seems like there are articles every week between Glenn Tipton, KK Downing. You don't hear too much from other guys in Judas Priest. I think they've just designated Glenn as the guy who's going to go after KK. I don't know. Obviously, Richie is probably in no condition or no place to be the spokesperson for the current Priest lineup. All I know is that Priest is going into the Hall of Fame, possibly. It'd be really stupid if they don't put them in this time, just from a standpoint of you've nominated them a couple of times now. You would think at this point they're going to go in, right? You keep putting them out there, they should go in. But will they? I don't know. A Tribe Called Quest is probably going to go in before Judas Priest. We'll see what happens, folks. But this argument will continue. I think what they need to do here is clear the air between everybody, and shy of saying to KK, hey, why don't you come back in the band, right? Why don't you come in? I don't know. Is Richie out of commission? Is he coming back ever? So there would be a window, I think, here for Richie to come back to Judas Priest. Priest fans, I don't know if they really care at this point. They just want to go out and see guys like rocking their butts off and just doing what they normally do. And by the way, the KK's Priest thing compared to the Judas Priest thing isn't bad. I mean, if you like that style, it isn't bad. In fact, it seems to throw back a little bit to the old Judas Priest, but none of it to me sounds like the vintage stuff that I could really tolerate and sink my teeth into back in the old days. Everything, like I say now, is so compressed and so noisy, and there's a lot of thump and there's not a lot of sort of musical texture the way things used to be. But that's just old geezer me talking. You may love it, and it may be your favorite form of music, but go back and listen to those old records. Go back and listen to Elf too while you're at it, Ronnie James Dio. You're going to find like, hey, this isn't that loud. It's just really good. And to me, that's the whole point. I mean, I'd like to hear the music. I'd like to be able to hear the vocals and the music. And you may want to throw some good melody in there as well. And screaming isn't necessarily the optimum way of singing all the time. But things evolve, and this is the way Judas Priest has evolved. We'll see if they get into the Rock Hall. They may or may not. And my guess is I think they have to put them in this time. And if they don't, they're going to get so much blowback if they don't put Judas Priest in the Hall of Fame. So anyway, good publicity here. Like I say, any publicity is good, and the articles keep coming as the feud goes more viral, as more articles come out. And I don't think there's really that much to it. I think either KK gets back in or he doesn't. They need to forgive him. He needs to forgive them. But hey, everybody's making money, I think. So I think that's what is most important to these guys at this point. All right, done with this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Patreon for just $1 a month. And I really appreciate all those new patrons. Great way to communicate with fellow music fans over on Patreon without all of the negativity and the crappy comments, and just people who either enjoy this channel, right? Or they just want to talk music, or they're respectful, which is very important. And it's one of the reasons I'm exclusively using Patreon for this stuff. There are some social media pages that I'm on, and you can find me over there on occasion, but quite honestly, I don't like social media. I really don't. It's just a toxic pool of never-ending negativity and bad vibes. So that's it. Done. See you soon, everybody.